If you don't hear his booming voice on radio in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, if you don't find him in a control room, which is where he is now, you might actually find him playing beach volleyball. Or wait a minute, that's another Sam Schachter. This one is a senior managing director at Comar Productions at PGA of America, and he joins me on the Honest Something podcast. I'm Bryan Fenley, network broadcaster, and this is a sports media podcast where we are going to, Sam, learn all about you, not just work focus. We're going to learn about the personal side as well. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you. And that is so funny that you said that because one time I looked up every Sam Schachter in the world online because I thought, gosh, there can't be that many of them, right? And I found that guy, and he's a little more accomplished than I am.
Well, as we continue on this conversation, I'm going to prove you wrong that you have accomplished a whole lot. That Sam, though, two-time Olympian with Canada,
Right.
other than the name, how often, or I guess for the names per se, how often would you or might you get confused for that Sam?
I would say, I would say literally never. I'm sure I've never met him, don't really know anything about him. I assume he's very tall and very athletic. But the last time I really thought about him was I guess during the last Olympics, he played in the last Olympics, and there was a graphic with his name on it, and somebody sent me a screen grab of that and said, "Hey, I didn't know you played for Team Canada."
I also saw the in that screen grab because I think you posted it on LinkedIn that Sam is 6'5" and has
Right.
like a 40 plus vertical leap. Not saying you don't have those attributes, certainly could be there.
5'10", not a big jumper.
Not a big jumper. Although, if we do focus on your kids for a second, you've got some good athletes there. You being the parent of a daughter who's a great softball player, loves coaching, a son who's a football player, what attributes have they shown on their respective fields that you are jealous that you didn't have at their ages growing up?
Well, so a couple of things. One, they had opportunity, which is, I think, the most important thing. My wife and I did not really push them into sports at all. When my daughter, for instance, she started playing softball at 5 years old, and she immediately loved the game. Passion is 100% the most important thing. And by a parent pushing their kid into it, doesn't necessarily mean your kid will have passion. The one thing that my daughter has is legendary work ethic, legendary. Nobody will outwork her. She's a small kid, so I do think she has little kid syndrome, especially when you go to college. She played in college, and there are so many kids who are playing in college who are truly just there because of size. The one thing that I found about coaches in recruiting is they feel like I can coach they have some kind of syndrome where they feel like I can coach a kid to be the best athlete on the planet. I can't coach size, I can't coach speed, I can't coach a lot of those things. Um, what they also can't coach is work ethic. And every opportunity I think that my daughter got in softball was 100% because she was the hardest worker on the team. First one there, last one gone, hits on off days, did all of that kind of stuff. And in college, especially when she came home, my work was just starting. You know, I mean, I threw BP every day. I hit grounders and fly balls to her every day. So work ethic is truly what separates her from everyone else. She has a very, very high softball IQ. She wants to be a college coach. Um, that's awesome. But nobody will outwork her. That I know for sure. My son really has great athleticism. He's a really big kid. I mean, he's not tall big. He's 5'10", 5'11", probably 270. He's nose guard. He loves playing on the line. Um, and I tell you, something that he had was when he started playing ice hockey when he was maybe 6, I think is when they actually let you on the team. He started skating at 2. And I believe his athleticism, and when he was 4, 5, and 6 years old, he was skating 6, 7 days a week. Couldn't get him off the ice. Loved going and being on the ice. And so he was a really, really, really strong skater. He wanted to play goalie. He did not want to, he had no interest in playing forward. He did play forward in defense. Um, uh, you know, actually later in his career, but he just kind of loved being there. Now, as a football player, what he really loves, I think, is more than the actual sport, the game. He loves the team aspect, the camaraderie. He loves all of that. So I think that all just comes down to passion. My daughter will watch softball 24/7. If there was a softball channel, that's the only thing she would watch. If there was a football, there is a football channel, right? My son has never turned it on. Right. What he loves about football, he gets to hit people and nobody says anything.
How much credit would they give you, and do you feel like they should give you? And not that it's about you,
Right,
but hard work, part of it is innate, but part of it is also learned. So even it might not even have been what you said, but it was your actions as they were growing up to see what you were doing
right,
to piece together for them a
right.
hard work gene.
Yeah.
What credit do you take for them taking that?
So I think my daughter would give me a lot more credit probably than my son. Because I am out there throwing batting practice and I was out there hitting grounders and fly balls. And um, for my son, he and I would skate together, but by the time he was 7 or 8, he was a much better skater than I was. And so there was only so much that you know what he liked to do? This was crazy to me. He would get on the ice, he and I would get on the ice, and he would say, "Let's drop the gloves."
Oh,
And so there was
and
there was there was one time I accommodated him, and it was a bad idea.
what happened?
Oh, I just went down fast. We just wrestled, right? It wasn't nothing really physical. We just wrestled, and I went down because he was just a much better skater than me. Um, I do think parental involvement is crazy important. I think if you look at the great athletes, more than likely if it wasn't a parent, they had somebody who did something with them. Um, so I think you're right. Work ethic is learned for sure. But my wife works really hard at her job. She's also a first one there, last one gone person. And so um, I mean, I would say my kids get that from both of us, but um, again, I just think passion, love for the game is so important. And there's many reasons you love a sport. And so for my son, it's the team aspect of it. For my daughter, she just loves the game, has never not loved the game, so much more comfortable inside the lines than outside the lines. It's once she starts playing, you could just see I'll tell you a story. Her last college game was at the University of Chicago, I don't know, a month ago or so. And May 18th is when it was. No, May 18th was her graduate, like May 10th was her last college game. And she's just at second base. She's just in the middle of a game. It's a very close, very competitive game. Um, and you could just tell she was just so in her element, smiled the whole time, just loved being there. Um, so yeah, it's a really tough transition, I think, actually, for a college player, especially to be done with playing, even though she's not done with the game, to be done with playing, very, very difficult.
She's living out a passion
Right.
post college. You lived out a passion post college,
Yep.
and you got to do something where it felt like right out of college. I mean, you were 19 years old when you were on the air,
Right.
and you're still a teenager. You're still discovering and finding yourself. But to be in a place where you are doing what you felt you were placed on this earth to do, how does that influence you for the rest of your life when you get to jump into those things right after college so early and find that purpose?
Uh, well, let me start by how I got into this, right? So again, the only thing I wanted to do as a kid was be a sportscaster. That's it. Had no other goals, ambitions. Wasn't a great student. I wasn't a terrible student, but I wasn't a great student. Um, and so I had a teacher in ninth grade who really influenced me and told me, if that's what you want to do, you can do it. I mean, my dad worked in a factory, my mom worked in the kitchen. We had no idea. My parents actually, when they came to this country, didn't speak a word of English, right? So they had no idea how to make this happen. This teacher in high school said, "Okay, get a journalism degree, go to school." So I went to Duquesne. I got a degree in journalism. But as a freshman, I went to, when I was registering for classes, I told them I wanted an internship at the TV station. And, oh, you can't do that till you're a senior. And so somehow, I don't remember what happened, but I met a guy at KDKA in Pittsburgh, one of the great TV stations in America, a guy named Jeff Weisbart, who got me into the internship program. And I was a sports intern at KDKA in Pittsburgh. That led to a part-time weekend sports producer job. I will tell you to this day, the single greatest job I've ever had in my life. It was Saturday and Sunday, and it was at the flagship TV station in my hometown, and it was just awesome. And really, what was I doing? I was watching games, logging games, telling the weekend sports guy, "Hey, here's what I saw today," and cutting highlights, and that was it. The weekend sports guy was a guy named Steve Talbot at the time. I learned more from Steve Talbot than than I learned from a lot of people. Steve Talbot would come in, I'd been watching games all morning or whatever, and he would come in and he'd say, "Hey, did you see that play in the Boston College Pitt game that where it was a cutaway of a fan with a," I'm like, "What?" And so yeah, I saw that, Steve. And but what he taught me was to really watch things, and there's more to a story than just the three plays that determine the outcome of the game. Um, that was a great experience. I also there was a sportscaster there by the name of John Sanders, who he did a lot of play-by-play on ESPN. He was a great sportscaster, learned a lot from him, but it was such a fantastic job. I actually remember I was in a news meeting once with a guy named Ray Tannehill, who was the main anchor. He was like the Pittsburgh news anchor. And at that point, it just hit me like, oh my God, how am I here? Right. I was 18-ish years old. And it was just that first experience at that great TV station. Um, just a phenomenal experience. At that station, there was another sports guy. He was just a reporter. He was a guy named Alan Cutler. Alan Cutler knew the news director at the TV station at WTAJ in Altoona. They had an opening for a weekend sports guy, and Alan Cutler knew the guy. He called the guy, and I got the job. I had a tape that I made on the set at KDKA. Right? Literally had never done anything like that before in my life, but I did know that I was born to do that. I 100% knew that I would be able to do that. When I was a kid, I was the kid who would do play-by-play in the stands, right? Annoy everyone around you. That was me. Um, and so I 100% knew I'd be great at this job, but I'd never done any kind of job like this. So I would go to school at Duquesne in the morning, throughout the week. And then Friday morning, I would drive to Altoona, which is about a 2.5 hour drive. I would drive there, and do the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday sportscasts. Um, and it was awesome. It was awesome. I'll tell you another story. Great parenting here. My parents would um, would drive from Pittsburgh to a town called Indiana, Pennsylvania. They'd get a hotel room, and that was as far away from Altoona that you could watch WTAJ. They'd get a hotel room just to watch the news. They told me this later on. I didn't know, but that's great parenting right there, I think.
When they finally told you that,
Yeah.
what did they tell you about what they thought of you when watching you?
Oh, they just thought I was fantastic. I knew I knew how I had a lot of growing to do for sure, but yeah, no, that was just proud parent moment for them, especially immigrants who really didn't know any of this stuff. I did not grow up in a big sports house, right? Nobody really watched sports in my house other than me, and I couldn't do anything but watch sports. And so um, yeah, no, I mean that I thought that was very cool. They only did that for a while. I worked in Altoona for about a year and a half before I graduated. But yeah, no, that was pretty cool.
Watching your parents and the sacrifices that they made,
Right,
obviously coming to the United States
right.
is a Herculean task in itself, but they also went through a lot before they came
Yeah.
to the United States. And when it comes to that, what did they share with you, and what do you take with you to this day?
Right. So, as kids, both of my parents were in concentration camps. My mother in Romania, my father in Russia. And Look, I mean, we heard a lot of stories as kids. They didn't talk about it all that much, but we heard stories when we would, you know, I, I don't know why I remember this, but I remember this. Uh, my mom had made something for dinner. Boy, I must have been 10 years old, maybe younger. My mom had made something for dinner, and I was like, this is America. We don't eat that for dinner, right? And and I just remember my dad chirping in and saying, you know something, we ate potato peels, and that was a delicacy. So we're going to eat this dinner tonight, and we're going to love this dinner tonight. But honestly, they didn't talk about it very much. I learned more about there is Steven Spielberg has a project called the Shoah Project. And what he was trying to do when he was doing this, and it's at USC Film School, what he was trying to do was interview as many Holocaust survivors as he could. I remember they came to our house. I must have been 20 at the time, maybe. They came to our house and interviewed my dad. And I remember watching, I mean, I just didn't I just didn't know a lot of the things he was talking about. They just didn't talk about it very much. And then a few years ago, maybe about 5, 6 years ago, my mom was interviewed for this thing as well. And I mean, that was a who are you moment, right? Really? And so it was, yeah, they went through a lot. They went through, I've had a great life. You know, what my parents went through as kids, what they went through. So after they met, after they met and they got married in Romania. They moved to Israel, which is it's at where I was actually born in Israel. They moved to Israel. They were in Israel for a couple of years. And then my dad's parents were living in Pittsburgh, and that's how they were able to immigrate, is because they my grandparents sponsored them at the time. And so well, I will tell you, my dad all the time, my my dad he died a few years ago, but he loved America so much, right? he would always talk about how when we came here, I don't know if I can, I'll say this. He always say we didn't have a pot to piss in. He must have said that 1,000 times. Um, and he loved America so much because, I mean, it was the land of opportunity. It truly was. And he worked in a factory his whole life. But he and my mom, both my brother and I, we both went to college. We both graduated from college. My brother has a master's degree. You know, uh, yeah, America is the 100% the land of opportunity. I truly believe that. And when we talk about political division in this country, my mom just last week said to me, she said, yes, I've seen communism, I've seen socialism. You know what? This is still the best place on earth, no matter what happens. So, yeah, yeah.
Powerful words that you just said. When you do in those moments get to hear your parents finally open up in some of those
Right,
interviews after years of past of going through those things. When you reflect on that, how much do you feel like that decision from their part, obviously unspeakable things and the pain that I will never could never imagine, but also saying that they wanted to protect you.
yes, no question. America was more than the land of opportunity for them. It was a safe place. Um, Interestingly enough, my brother, when he graduated college, he moved to Israel. He lived there for about he went to the army there. He lived there for about 10, 15 years, and now he lives in Pittsburgh again. But yeah, I think it was some protection, but I think more than anything, it was really there were, especially in 1967, 68, it's just more opportunity in America than anywhere else in the world. And so, yeah, no, very, very, very proud immigrant Americans for sure.
A lot of opportunity came forth because of them moving to the United States. A lot of opportunities in the business of broadcasting have come your way, including a lot of opportunities to storytell, which at the heart of what you're doing seems to be your biggest passion and picking up on the vibes that you're giving out and learning more about you as we continue to talk about things. Storytelling for me, Sam, there's the art form of it, which is great. But then there's the power that it could have beyond the art form, and that it can do something for the community.
Right.
And in what you're doing now and in what you've done in the past, what are the kind of stories where you feel like there's an extra underlying purpose to wanting to get the word out about what that is?
Great question. I'll tell you the fate my in all my years, probably the story that has hit hardest with me is a film that I did probably 4 or 5 years ago about the Texas Rangers Youth Academy. So the Rangers Youth Academy is part of Major League Baseball RBI program. And they had hired us, the Rangers did, to shoot this film and just tell the story of the Youth Academy. It is, I would have never imagined um, how compelled I was to be part of this. Now, there's a something interesting at the very end of this story. But in talking to the Youth Academy is really a great, great baseball, softball facility. In the off season, major leaguers go there to hit. It's a fantastic facility, but it is in the middle of West Dallas, which is not a great community. And I remember interviewing a kid named Daniel, and Daniel was from that neighborhood. He's a really good baseball player. He thought he was going to go to college and play. I don't think he did, but I remember him telling me verbatim quote, "I'm not going to lie, this is the hood." And he then told me a story about how he got shot in the face. He was a really good baseball player, and he thought that was going to end his career. There was another girl there who worked there, a kid by the name of Hannah, and Hannah Pacheco. And I'll tell you at the end how I remember her name vividly. Um, so Hannah was a really good softball player, and her dad died in the middle of COVID. And she talked about a game where she had hit a game-winning home run. That was, she said she had been crying all day thinking about her dad, and it was just a very emotional moment. She asked the kid to take her at bat, and the kid said, "No, you go take the at bat." She hits the game-winning homer. Um, so I just loved the youth academy. So since then, they would call me. I take just as a hobby, a fun thing that I do. I take sports action shots. Love taking photos, right? And they called me, "Hey, can you come take pictures for?" Yeah, sure, of course. Blah 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 blah. And here's what I really love about the story. Today, my daughter coaches at the Texas Rangers Youth Academy.
Wow.
They had, and she will tell you, she played for all the club teams. She had the $500 bat, blah, 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 blah. She will tell you to this day that working at the youth academy is more inspirational to her than any game she ever played, any big hit she ever had. She really, really, she really enjoys working at the youth academy. Um, and that film, that's the film that keeps on giving to me. I really believe that. It won an Emmy, so I was fired up about that. But so really appreciative about the work that I did for the Rangers Youth Academy. Um, and to me, it's really about the story. It's just a great story about a fabulous facility that really helps kids, because there are kids who go there, it's free, and there are kids who go there that will never, ever, ever step on a college field, on probably on the high school field. Um, but it really does a lot for the community. Those are the stories I love telling, stories that have impact. I make a joke with people, that, oh, before I do an interview, I can make her cry in 4 questions or less. Right? Right. So I love doing those kinds of stories. Ultimately, I will tell you, I think the thing that I am best at is interviewing people without question. Trust me, asking the questions a lot easier than answering them, right? But I love interviewing people, and it's because there's a thing that I say. I say that life is actually really easy. It's just people who F it up, right? And so um, I'm fascinated by people. That's why I love talking to them and asking them questions. And the single greatest interview I've ever done in my life was not done on camera, with a camera, in an official interview kind of thing. The single greatest interview I ever did with someone is I was at a light. There was nobody behind me. It was in a really bad part of Dallas. There's a guy with a sign there in a wheelchair, no legs, says, "We'll work for food," right? And at that moment, I literally just rolled down my window, and my first question to him was, "Dude, what happened?" Because in my mind, I thought, how could you look? I get it. I live in the suburbs and all of that, but how do you get to that point in your life? And he started telling me his story. I literally pulled over, got out, and started talking to the guy, talked to him for an hour. Don't know the guy's name, what he's doing now, or whatever, but um, I really enjoy talking to people, getting into their heads, understanding um, just kind of what they're thinking, and that's what I love about athletes too. Athletes think so differently than the con. than the NARP. You know what a NARP is? Non-athletic real person.
Oh my gosh, I've never heard that. Yeah.
Athletes think so much differently than them. Um, and
I'm listening.
and that's why I just love, I
Keep it going.
love,
Sorry.
no, no problem. That's why I love just talking to people, just all people, all walks of life. I think people are fascinating. I think they're flawed. I think some are fantastic. I think some are jerks. I mean, it, I love talking to people and meeting them and understanding them and getting to know them. And that's why I think if I could just do a talk show, that would be easy. That would just be so easy for me. I don't think I'm a little past my prime to do a talk show, but
I don't necessarily think so, but with that, what you just said, how much I don't know, we've talked for more than 20 minutes.
right.
How much are you getting to understand me through the time that we've talked about it? And what comes to your mind when I ask you that question?
It's a great question. I've since I've been answering the questions and not asking them, here's what I think about you. I think you're a really good listener because you play off of what I'm saying, right? And so, and I think that's really the most important thing about being an interviewer is just listening to people. Um, um, I'm the guy. I mean, we have clients all the time who will say to us, "Oh, we want you to ask these questions." And it's okay if you tell the client beforehand what the questions are. And I will always say, no, we just don't do that. Um, and the reason for that is well, first of all, they'll practice their answers and it'll be a terrible interview. Second of all, I hardly ever come with questions. You clearly don't have any questions in front of you, right? So I hardly ever come with questions. I just want to talk to you. That's it.
There's like I come at it with you. Like I'm doing my due diligence and research and knowledge of you.
Right.
So it's not like I'm coming in blind in this interview. But I'm also not stubborn in the fact of, okay, I want to hit on certain topics, so I'm going to just go there no matter what answer you give to a question I ask. No, like you said, I am going to try to make it as fluid as possible given what you said, and let's go down that road. I might not have foreseen it, but that's the beauty
Right.
of these conversations. And with all of the work that you do in golf, incredible content, and of course, as Comar Productions, PGA of America Senior Managing Director, Sam Schachter is with me. I'm Bryan Fenley. The LPGA just had an incredible event, with their championship not long ago. When you think of golf courses, it inherently talks to the inner need for wanting to tackle something or to be challenged or to be tested in life. And that playing a golf course and covering golf like you do, it comes across really at the heart of what a human is all about. And that why and how do you feel like golf as a sport and the courses that which you cover are a metaphor for this inherent desire to want to be tested, to want to be challenged, and that the human always wants to seek that out, no
Right.
matter in what aspect of their life.
Well, golf is certainly the hardest sport I've ever played.
Yes.
Right. Ball's not moving. I mean, it's a very, very difficult sport. And then actually, yeah, here at the KPMG Women's PGA Championship last week, it's a hard golf course, one, and then the winds were up, which made it so much harder. Only two players, I think, finished under par. And so, yes, I think the human spirit wants a challenge for sure. Um, um, yeah, you know, I just the reason I love golf is because it is so hard. I I don't necessarily want to be challenged, but I know the only way to get better is working hard, is practicing, is like when I first took up golf, I was probably 25, 26 years old. buddy of mine and I went from Shreveport to Dallas to go cover the Byron Nelson. And this is the first time I'd ever seen a PGA event, a professional tournament. And I was so hooked. I was so hooked. And we're driving back to Shreveport and we stop at a par three in Marshall, Texas, maybe Longview, Texas, and rented clubs, played the par three. And literally for 2 years after that, I banged balls every day. Every day. Just because it was so hard. I wanted to be challenged so much by it. And I was being challenged so much by it and I got to be okay. Um, but I either went to the range or played a real round literally every day for 2 years. Now I could do that because golf was free for me. I was the guy on TV. So everybody let me play for free. But it's just such a fantastic game. It really, really is. And to see and I love the LPGA too. To watch Nelly Korda hit a ball last week, that was the first time I'd ever seen her play. And she said she didn't really play that well. And she was very nice. I talked to her. She was very nice afterwards. Minji Lee, who won the tournament, was super, super nice, and she wasn't a big hit at all. Um, but she could hit the ball really well, really far too. So it's just such a great game. I don't know how to describe it other than it's just such a great game.
It's a great game. You've put out and continue to put out great content revolving around the game. And in closing, the the constant challenges that we like to put forth in front of ourselves to get better at whatever that is. We've talked a lot about interviewing, and you're doing a lot of interviews around the golf space, whether you're talking to pro golfers or other organizations that are attached to golf. You've done so many interviews yourself, and in listening to you, it sounds like there, and I love this, that there is such a passion for the asking of the questions. And with all of the questions that you've asked, and of all the interviews you've done, whether they're on camera or whether you meet somebody off the side of the road, how are you every day hoping to challenge yourself as an interview question asker every day, even with all the interviews that you've done?
Look, I wish I could. First of all, every interview is a challenge, right? I've gone through life saying that everybody has a story to tell. Most people don't believe they have a story to tell, but they do. Everyone does. Um, and so I certainly don't try to challenge myself. I really just want to talk to someone and get to know them and understand them. Um, if it's something that's controversial, for instance, I don't really care about it being controversial. I want to try to understand what you're thinking. Um, I may agree, disagree, or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's not really my place. I wish, um, I actually wish. So I feel like the news sometimes today compared to 30 years ago really does take positions, certainly on cable news. And um, I just don't think that's the job of the interviewer. To me, the job of the interviewer is to get the story out and really understand what's going on with that person, how they got there, how they got to that point. Um, I've always had this idea for a show that just never happened. But in my mind, the show was called Vantage Point, and it was an interview-driven show. It was at a game, and it was, basically focusing on five people in the stadium. All five of these people are seeing the same thing, but based on where they are, what their perspective is, they have a different vantage point of how things go. So if I after the game interview the quarterback and the nose guard's mom, right? They saw the same thing happen. Literally everybody saw the same thing happen, but they see it differently, just kind of based on their perspective. And that's what I look for in an interview. I just want to know your perspective. I just want to hear your story. Um, Somebody else can judge whether you're right or wrong or whatever, but um, uh, to me, that is the greatest challenge of an interview, is just having somebody coming out, being honest, telling their story, and going home. So it's not rocket science. I truly believe it's not rocket science. And I know a lot of people really take it seriously and work hard and do a ton of research. There are many times where I just don't really do much research just because, look, I want to know what your position is. I want to know top line a lot of things, but I don't need to know every detail. I want to dig and find that detail when we're talking. So,
Humbly, my point of view is we can check off the box that we hit your perspective. We can check off the box in this conversation that we heard your story. And what a story it was. And thank you so much.
yeah,
Schachter,
100%.
I'm Bryan Fenley. What a pleasure. We went to so many different places. And I feel like, Sam, we could do this for another hour and a half. We could do one of those 3 hour long podcasts, but this was a joy. Thank you so much for your frankness and really allowing us to see deep within you, aside from what we see on social media, but getting at the heart of who you are. Really appreciate that.
Awesome. 100%. Thanks.